Kamen Entchev here with Tom Casselman, ready for another week of Salute Your Sports. It's NFL Draft Week, baby. Big quarterback class this year. A lot of QBs drafted early are the projections. You know what, man? We're going to talk about all four of these quarterbacks. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. Who's going to be great? Who's going to be a bust? I'm split 2-2 where we got two busts and two stars in the quarterback spot is my prediction. Cannot wait to get into that. We'll talk about who's going to be a surprise pick. You know, who's going to be a guy that maybe doesn't get drafted in the top 5. He's going to be great. That's going to be fun to get into as well. And it's the NBA playoffs, of course. Things are heating up. The Lakers and Warriors. My 6 and 7 predictions looking pretty good, Tom Casselman. Man, I told you, you're all down in the play-in. We got the 7-seed Lakers about to win a series. Do I dare say the 8-seeded Miami Heat could win the series? I'm still not sure they're going to pull it off. Jimmy Butler's probably not going to go for 56 again this series. Then again, even though he'll disagree himself, playoff Jimmy Butler is 100% a thing. No doubt about it. Playoff Jimmy Buckets is a real thing. So we'll also talk about Aaron Rodgers. Actually, skipped ahead to NBA. We do have an NFL topic. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is official. Who won that trade? And, of course, betting locks of the week, sports trivia, statements of the week, and much more. Cannot wait to get started, Tom. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. We have a ton of great content. I mean, the NFL is a year-round league. They structure their calendar in a way that every month there is something going on. We've got the NFL draft coming up on Thursday of this week. That's, for folks who are watching the show, we record on Wednesday, so the draft is tomorrow. And then, of course, in May, the schedule will come out. Of course, we already know who's playing whom, but now we're going to be figuring out, or in a little bit, we'll be figuring out where and exactly and when they'll be playing. But Panthers are on the clock. They've been on the clock, the Carolina Panthers, since they made a deal with hometown Chicago Bears, moving from 9 to 1 in the draft. And there's been a lot of interesting movement. I mean, prior to that trade, Bryce Young was considered the consensus favorite to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. This trade takes place, then it's C.J. Stroud for a hot minute. Now it's gone back to Bryce Young, but recent movement, Will Levis has the highest quantity number of bets on being the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So that leads us to the question of who should the Carolina Panthers take with the first overall pick in the draft? Not necessarily, I mean, we have lots of mock drafts and everything. We've got, Mel Kipers and Todd McShay's and all these other folks out there who have a, near to the ground. They're listening. Matt Miller, Dan Brugler, all these guys take a lot of good information in putting these mocks together. Mocks are saying Bryce Young. Kamen, I know where you're going on this one with knowing that's who they should take. Do you think the Panthers will actually take Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick, or do you think that there's been enough chatter that they might be going someplace else?
No, they're going Bryce Young. I mean, again, I'm going to answer who they should take. They should take Bryce Young. He's got the it factor. He's the best quarterback in this draft. No doubt about it. And actually, this Will Levis stuff is garbage to me, by the way. I mean, come on. This guy, I know his line wasn't great, but he'll throw a pick. He'll get sacked all the time. Doesn't get rid of the ball quick enough. I know he's got the arm strength, the athleticism, but my goodness, Will Levis, decision-making is an issue. He played really bad in some of the biggest games this last season against Tennessee. Anthony Richardson, what is it, 53.8 completion percentage? That's barely over 50%. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. The 2 best quarterbacks in the draft are by far Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And actually, Bryce Young in his college career, 80 touchdowns, 12 picks. C.J. Stroud, 85 and 12. But C.J. Stroud played with much better receivers. I mean, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, we're talking about like 4 NFL starters. 2 of them are already the 2 best young receivers from last season. And then you have, Bryce Young played with Williams, Jameson Williams at one point. And then who else? Mechie was all right. And this last year, he didn't play with anybody. What is crazy to me, because he didn't have the guys Tua and Mac Jones had. There wasn't Devontae Smith. There wasn't
Mhm.
Jalen Waddle. Relative to Alabama, this guy didn't play with very good receivers, and this man put his team in a position to win. You look at who he lost to in his college career. By the way, last season, Alabama lost 2 games. Everyone freaked out. It was not Bryce Young's fault. He led him to a game-winning drive, kicking the game-winning field goal against Tennessee, and they miss. And then Tennessee's kicker was better than Alabama's kicker. That's why they lost that game. Against LSU, leads them down. LSU goes for 2-1 to win. They won based on a 2-point conversion. So it's not like Bryce Young didn't make those clutch plays. And in the national championship against Georgia, one of the best teams of all time, and that Georgia team 2 years ago, by the way, much better than the one last year, in my opinion. And he actually had him. They were winning. They beat him in the SEC title game. They were beating him until his number 1 receiver goes down. Who's to say what happens in that situation? I know he's small. I want to hear one other reason other than he's small. No one else has any other reason not to pick this guy. He's a mix of Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. He's a smaller guy, a shorter guy, maybe not quite as fast as Russell Wilson, but he's very crafty, like Russell Wilson, really good at running to pass the ball, really good at eluding the pressure, kind of maybe like that Ben Roethlisberger, Tony Romo, swagger in the pocket. He's a better athlete than those guys, but he's not necessarily a better athlete than Russell Wilson. But the size, the escapability, the touch on his ball, the accuracy, the decision making, he's got a mix of Drew Brees and Russell Wilson for me, and that's a pretty darn good mix. My goodness, this guy, he's got the it factor. You looked up your scouting reports. This is everything I hear. He is Joe Montana in the pocket. This guy's a leader. He puts his team in the right positions. And the beauty about him is, even if he's not playing his A game, he can turn it on at any point. Such a fantastic player. We're talking about a generational quarterback for me. A lot of guys are pumped for Caleb Williams next year. Bryce Young's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the 20 greatest quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion. And that's why the Bears have already bungled this draft. They'll continue to bungle it. Do not pass on Bryce Young. This kid is that good. Only reason to pass on him is size. And what's that saying? It's not the size of the dog, but the heart of the dog in the fight.
Yep.
This man's got that heart, Tom Casselman. I'm so high on Bryce Young. I honestly am trying to remember the last time I was so high on a quarterback prospect out of college. It might have been
Maybe
Russell Wilson. Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, guys that I really like to.
Yeah. I know you said Cam Newton, Hall of Fame. Russell Wilson, you said he was a sleeper. So I don't know how you want to equate those sorts of things.
Sure.
But,
well, look, Cam Newton, if he didn't get hurt, he would be in the Hall of Fame. He's not that far off either.
Yeah, he might be in anyway, because he has an MVP. He played the position in a completely different way than a lot of guys did, perhaps to his detriment, both from a longevity perspective and a development perspective. When you're good at one thing and you kind of maybe neglect other things. I'm also going to go Bryce Young should be the pick for the Carolina Panthers. So a little bit of a plug here. I subscribe to The Athletic, and I highly recommend it, if only for Dane Brugler's draft guide called The Beast. He's got 400 players on here, strengths, weaknesses, everything. You mentioned, Kamen, wanting to know a few of the weaknesses. This is where I'm not as high on Bryce Young as you are. I think he'll be a good quarterback. I'm going to wait till I see it on the NFL level. I'm going to wait to see before I say anything about Hall of Fame. For a couple different reasons. Obviously, the size is the thing that folks talk about most, but as part of the weaknesses that Dane Brugler highlights, his arm strength closer to average than above average, deep ball loses life downfield.
Drew Brees
is the comparison.
Exactly.
12 career fumbles in college, average throw time of 3.02 seconds, holding the ball a little bit long. So
what's Will Levis's average throw time?
I don't know if that's necessarily listed out.
Yeah, it's probably not good.
But basically, it's that he's a really accurate quarterback, high-level processing, everything up here that you want to have in a quarterback. And sure, he's a couple inches, a couple of pounds, and some better arm strength away from basically being in the category of an Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, has the complete
Better
package.
than those guys.
He has
He's better.
again, I'm going to have to wait to see that at the
Okay.
NFL level. I think that he's going to be going to a pretty decent situation in Carolina, as
Division champs.
they've built up a good offensive line around him. They could use a couple of extra weapons, but they have the means, the assets of being able to get that, whether it's drafting a receiver in round 2, using something to trade for, say, a disgruntled DeAndre Hopkins. They have ways of being able to add some more talent, since they shipped out DJ Moore as part of that deal with the Chicago Bears to get Bryce Young. I think he should be the top overall quarterback selected. I think that makes the most sense on myriad levels. Again, I'm not saying Hall of Fame a level just yet. I mean,
Hall of Fame.
I'm going to need to see him at the NFL level actually hold up, because I mean, Tua Tagovailoa obviously has talent, but we've seen him get banged up quite a bit because he's on the smaller side of things. Greatest ability is availability. We have to see if Bryce Young's going to be able to hold up at the NFL level, and if lack of size is going to be a
Again,
little bit of a
Drew
hindrance.
Brees and Russell Wilson held up just fine.
They're
The
okay.
Tua
First,
the Tua thing
they're
to
a bit
me,
taller and they're also broader.
the thing about Tua,
Nobody of Bryce Young
look,
except maybe Doug
Tua's got
Flutie.
bad luck and doesn't know how to fall properly. I don't know that it's so much that he's small. I don't really buy that's why he's getting hurt. I just don't like that. I don't like that he's too small. It just rubs me the wrong way. And I think that's what's impressive to me is that he is
Mhm.
that small and he'll still be number 1 overall, which is how good of a quarterback he is for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of ties into our next topic, which is talking about, there's 4 really good quarterback prospects this year, unlike last year where we waited till pick 20 for Kenny Pickett to go off the board, and then we had to wait until round 3 for the next guy. We're going to see 4, maybe even 5 guys going in the first round of this draft. Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee, being that 5th guy who might sneak in toward the bottom of that first round for teams that want to get that contractual 5th-year option on a young quarterback, rookie quarterback, I should say. He's 25 years old. But as far as ranking the
So
prospects, you
young.
and I both have Bryce Young as number 1. And you said C.J. Stroud was, the second
Easily.
quarterback on your list. He's
Easily.
easily the second quarterback on my list too. In terms of just he has better arm talent. He's more of that archetypical size that teams are looking for. The only difference is that from an offensive system standpoint, he was playing in a little bit more of a spread concept at OSU, as opposed to Bryce Young, whose quarterback coach was that. It was O'Brien, who used to be Houston Texans head coach, is now going to be
Bill
the
O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien. Thank you,
Yeah.
offensive coordinator in New England. So a little bit more of a pro style upbringing for Bryce Young, which I think helps with that processing. CJ Stroud, he has the arm talent to make all of the throws. It's just that, he's not at that same level of Bryce Young as far as processing goes. But I think as far as like a plug and play starter, quote unquote, you can put Bryce Young in that category. I think you can put CJ Stroud in that category as well, as being able to start from day one and kind of see where he goes from there. Situation's also going to be a pretty significant fit as well.
Yeah. Look, I think a lot of the stuff about Bryce Young is like these common stereotypes of he's too small. CJ Stroud faces the stereotypes of always not in a pro system, always an Ohio State
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. They're always bad. I think that's just a very dangerous thing to do because you got to look at each
Sure.
individual prospect. And CJ Stroud, by the way, Tom, is the best Ohio State quarterback at the college level I've ever seen. Just in terms of the throws he can make, the touch on his ball, the accuracy. He's really, really good. I mean, like, he's better than these other guys. He's a lot of these other guys, by the way, like, they weren't like, I mean, they were drafted in the first round, but like Dwayne Haskins. I mean, these guys weren't supposed to be like unbelievable players. I mean, none of these guys were going like number 2 overall pick. I mean, Justin Fields was the one, and a lot of folks are high on Justin Fields, higher than
Mm-hmm.
me. But CJ Stroud, I think, is a lot better than those Ohio State quarterbacks. He might need an ear to learn in the pro system, but this guy's going to be a very good quarterback to me. I think he's got all the tools. He has very good touch on his ball, too. One thing about both of these guys, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, they have beautiful touch on the ball, like that little fade in the corner of the end zone. like a little 10-yard touchdown pass. Those guys could both put those balls right where you need them. And the other knock on CJ, by the way, is he's not a big game player because he lost to Michigan, but my goodness, he was
Yeah, look
probably
at the
the
Georgia
best.
tape.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm about. Now, literally, I'm about to say, look at what he did against the best defense in football. And that Michigan game, by the way, he wasn't the reason they lost. It was the defense. I mean, they gave up
Mhm.
40 plus, and 2 years ago, we actually played really good. It was like a wet, rainy day, and Michigan simply controlled the ground game. Even this last year, couple picks, but 349 yards, 2 touchdowns. CJ Stroud is just fine. He's going to be great. I really like him. The other two guys, look, I could be completely wrong. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are getting drafted on one word only for both. You know what that word is? Just guess.
Potential.
Potential. As Ted Lasso would say, smells like potential. Now, you still got to watch Ted Lasso, Tom. Oh, my God. What a great episode last night. Fantastic. The best show on TV these days. I guess it's on Apple TV, but that's kind of TV with the way modern
Yeah.
TV is. Anyway, I digress.
Episodic programming.
Episodic programming. I like that. So these two guys, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, nothing special at the college level. Not very good. I mean, Will Levis this last season, 19 touchdowns, 10 picks, 24 touchdowns, 13 picks the year before. I mean, that's not very good for a college player. I know it's Kentucky, but they actually had some decent players. Kentucky, maybe in large part because of him, but they were ranked in the top 25 consistently at points of the years, last couple of years. I specifically watched the game on TV against Tennessee this last year. If you had watched that game on TV, the eye test, you would assume this guy's a horrible player. No one in their right mind would think this guy would be a top 2 or 3 pick. Anthony Richardson, same deal. Yes, he could make a lot of great throws, but my goodness, the simple 5-yard pass. There are passes, Tom, that I can make that Anthony Richardson can't make. A little 5-yard out to a wide open receiver. Oh, Richardson overthrows him. Oh my God, 53.8 completion percentage. Levis and Richardson, to me, are both busts. Yes, they could turn it around. Yes, I could be wrong. Yes, they've got potential. Yes, they've got talent. But it just, I have seen them play. And for me, the eye test from what I've seen them play, the stats, like everything just doesn't click to me. These guys both scream busts. I think in 5 years, these guys will be out of the league personally. The only reason why I put Anthony Richardson ahead of Will Levis, Tom, is because he's a great runner. I think he's going to be a good runner in the pros. May not be Fields or Hurts, but I think that he can at least compensate for some of his passing issues with his running. Maybe he's a backup quarterback you put in once in a while to run like a wildcat, kind of like how Trey Lance was used by the Niners 2 years ago. That may be his path in the NFL to stick around in the league for a while. But as far as like a consistent starting quarterback, 5 years from now, Tom Casselman, mark it down. Wednesday, April 26th, 2023 at 1:08 p.m. If 5 years from now, Levis and Richardson are starting quarterbacks in the NFL, their teams will win 4 or less games. They're only starting if the team is really, really bad and they have no better option. Because I think both of these guys have busts written all over them. And I'm really, Tom, maybe it's, you know me, I love stats, I love production, but I like to see on-field production. I don't care about how well Anthony Richardson threw the ball at Pro Day when there was no one in his face, when he was throwing in shorts, not in pads, to wide open receivers. This supposed progression he's made in just a few months, I don't care about that. I want to see how the guy played on the field. And at the NFL level, we've seen this a lot. We have seen this a lot. Guys that, were not very good players in college. The biggest arm doesn't mean much. Just because you're an athlete or you have an arm doesn't mean much. Jay Cutler, one of the best arms of all time. By the way, Cutler was okay, but granted to his arm strength, he should have been a top 5 quarterback ever, right? Sheer passing strength ability, that didn't happen. Vince Young was the best college quarterback of all time, Tom Casselman, but he wasn't a good enough passer, and he wasn't a good enough pro player. So I just don't think these guys are going to be good at all. I actually think, to me, hands down, the third best quarterback in the draft, not even close, Tom, is Hendon Hooker. He's the guy who played in the same SEC conference. He's the guy who takes care of the ball, doesn't have the turnover issues, the decision-making, the accuracy issues, the sack issues of Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. You look at what he did in college. Here's production for you. Better than 68% completion percentage the last 2 seasons. I know, quarterback-friendly offense. I know, a lot of screens, but 68%, better than 68. I'll take that. 31 touchdown passes, 3 picks, 27 touchdowns, 2 picks the last 2 years. This man himself in the last 2 seasons had more passing touchdowns than Will Levis and Anthony Richardson combined. So for me, it's you waste your pick on Levis, waste your pick on Richardson. I'm not saying that Hooker is going to be a star, but that's like your middle of the line starting quarterback in the NFL, maybe back half, that 15 to 20 range. But Hooker, to me, NFL starter, solid NFL player. Bryce Young, generational player, Hall of Famer. CJ Stroud, multi-time Pro Bowler. Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, guys watching on the couch in 5 years. That's my thought on these players.
So I also have Richardson followed by I have Richardson and then Levis, with Hooker being the 5th quarterback on that. I mean, I understand with Anthony Richardson, he's a bit of a cipher because we're doing a ton of projecting. I think that the most likely comp to him is perhaps Josh Allen. And Josh Allen took a couple of years to become a good quarterback. I mean, if you look at the college numbers, Allen only completed 56% of his passes at the collegiate level.
Different situation. He played at Wyoming with much lesser players, played in some of that cold weather.
But then he was also playing against much worse defenses than Anthony Richardson was. So it cuts both ways.
Now, Josh Allen's arm is still better than Richardson's. But I know what you're saying. I agree with the Josh Allen. But there's examples of each side, though. There's not that many Josh Allens out there. There's very few that are that low completion percentage that succeed at the next level. Very few.
And what I'm saying is that Anthony Richardson has that potential, perhaps more so than any quarterback since Josh Allen, as far as a draft prospect goes. So, I mean, more so for Richardson and Levis than for Stroud and Young. Situation is going to matter a ton. If, let's say Seattle, they've got Geno Smith on what is essentially a 1-year deal as far as that guaranteed money goes. If Anthony Richardson can sit for a year, learn a little bit, and then he steps in as that quarterback of the future for Seattle, is that something where he can get unlocked a little bit, so to speak? It's going to be very, very situation importance as far as whether or not these guys can succeed. I mean, you could even look at somebody like, say, Justin Fields, who had a great collegiate career, but he struggled a little bit in his first couple seasons as a pro player because he wasn't in a great situation. He hasn't been to this point. I hold out hope that will change and that'll allow his talent to come through. But that's the sort of thing where if Anthony Richardson, Will Levis can find themselves in a spot where they're not necessarily counted on to be the guy from jump day one, if they can be in a situation where there's a little bit more length to the rebuild, so to speak, or a little bit of latitude for their development, I think both can be, very good, good, I'd say average to good quarterback type of thing. I could see Will Levis being on the level of, say, Geno Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, Andy Dalton. So it's like guys that are passable starting quarterbacks at the NFL level. I think that's definitely in the cards for Will Levis. I don't think that's too high a bar to clear.
You just listed 3 of the most underrated quarterbacks of the last 15 years. I mean,
they're middle of the pack.
Geno Smith
special,
last season broke the history mark for most passing yards in Seattle's history. The history of the franchise. I'm not going to start talking about Jimmy G and how he's top 6 all-time in passer rating. I know we had that talk last week rather, but I don't see him being as good as any of those 3 players personally. But we'll see. Now that's the beauty of the draft. It's all projections. We can definitely be wrong. One thing about Anthony Richardson too, Tom, the guy barely played in college. He's one of those guys that, oddly enough, I don't think he would benefit from sitting and watching. This man needs game action. It's going to take him a while. His first season, Anthony Richardson will probably be bad his first year. Even I'm willing to give him 2 years. But I think that That's a guy who's barely played college football. I don't think that's a guy you want there sitting and learning. It's kind of like that Trey Lance situation. Injuries hurt him, but Trey Lance had barely played football, which, by the way, I think you're more injury prone. Maybe this is me. I'm not a scientist, Tom,
Mm.
but the professional sports at the highest level, you can get hurt by not being out there enough. That's why the Clippers get so many injuries because they always rest their guys. That's why the NBA has more injuries now than ever before. It's. I mean, the athletics trainers are the best ever, but this whole I'm going to sit and rest actually is hurting your body because having to, you rest for a few days and all of a sudden you're put into this system of high-speed athletes. It creates issues. It really does. So Anthony Richardson, I don't think he's a guy that can go to a team and sit. I think the only way he's going to learn is by playing the game. So we'll see. But
I
I
need a
think
lot of patience.
I think we got some busts coming up here. Levis and Richardson is my gut feeling.
Well, going for a little bit more of the positivity, of course, it's not just about the quarterbacks in this draft, although it's nice to have some atop of a lot of folks' draft boards. But, maybe just a couple of quick names. I'm sure a lot of folks have heard the big ones, but who else non quarterback is going to be a star, somebody that we're going to be talking about every single week on this show, not just for next season, but seasons into
Yeah.
the future? I mean, I think the biggest name that we're to talk about right now would be Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
guy who
Let's
is compared
go.
to Saquon Barkley, perhaps being even
Better.
better than
Better.
Saquon Barkley.
Better.
I mean,
Easily better.
how far back do we have to go for rookie running backs coming out that we're excited about to say that he's the best since X? Barkley is one watermark, but like certainly better than Najee Harris. Of recent years, better than Jonathan Taylor as far as a
Mhm.
prospect goes. Like, are we talking perhaps even like LaDainian Tomlinson level? Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's the chatter around this guy. There's a
He's the
lot that he does
best.
well.
He's the best since LT, and LT is probably 4 or 5 of my all-time greatest running back list. So I have a couple guys written down as. So I think the best player in this draft is Bryce Young. The
Mhm.
second best player in this draft, I'm going back and forth between Will Anderson and Bijan Robinson. Those are
You
my
should probably
two.
go Will Anderson.
Those are my two can't miss guys.
Mhm.
Really depends on what you need based on need. But I think there's three surefire Hall of Famers in this draft. Guarantee Hall of Fame for Bryce Young, guarantee Hall of Fame for Will Anderson, and guarantee Hall of Fame for Bijan Robinson. So I'll hit on
Oof.
Will Anderson first. So Will Anderson is the best defensive player on college football the last 2 seasons, by the way. 2 years ago, 17 and a half sacks. That's production that I like, Tom Casselman. Production. This man put up the numbers. Yes, he's super fast. Yes, he's
Mhm.
quick off the rush. Yes, he's a great athlete. He's got the tools, the skills, the potential, but he also has that college production. Back-to-back SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I had double-digit sacks back-to-back seasons. Even had a pick 6 this last year. Will Anderson did. This guy's amazing. And actually, the one thing he can actually improve on is he's still a little bit small. He can bulk up. He'll get even stronger. He'll get even better. Will Anderson is more than 100 career sacks in the NFL, Pro Football Hall of Famer. This is a guy that immediately off the bat, Tom, rookie season, top 10 in the league in sacks, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, no doubt about it. Will Anderson is probably the most sure thing in the draft. I know Bryce Young. I mean, I would pick Bryce Young number 1 because he's a quarterback. I know I say it's easy to say he's Hall of Fame, but quarterback injuries could hurt you more. You hurt your throwing arm. I think a defensive lineman is more easily able to come back from injuries. Obviously, Bijan Robinson, a little bit smaller running back. Same deal, maybe a little bit more injury prone. But I think all 3 are Hall of Famers. I'm just going to say Will Anderson is probably the most sure thing because there's
Mhm.
no way this guy's not going to be great. The other one I have, though, I do have Bijan Robinson written down. I know a lot of times we do this draft preview. We've been doing this for years, Tom. We had our college radio show for 3-4 years together. We've been doing this show for 3 years now. I've been known to pick some 3rd, 4th, 5th round, 6th round picks. This year, I'm going to stick with the big dogs.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to say Bijan Robinson because there was actually a little piece. I just saw this on SportsCenter, RG3, literally about an hour ago. I was watching this. He was talking about like, uh, numbers are used to guide us, metrics are used to guide us, but don't pass on so and so. He was actually talking about 6'2 quarterbacks, guys under 6'2. 85% of Super Bowl champions have been above 6'2. Then he listed some of the best players ever: Bart Starr, Drew Brees, some of these legends of the game. So that's why you should pick Bryce Young, but also why you shouldn't get so focused in on this whole running backs no longer good, no longer important. Like, yes, you could argue that to some extent that's somewhat true, but if you've got a super next level talent, we're talking about, a guy who is maybe the best running back since LaDainian Tomlinson, you cannot pass on Bijan Robinson. 1,580 rushing yards, 6.1 yards per carry, Tom. That's production right there. He's got the 4.36 40-yard time at the draft. He's got the measurables and the production, not just the measurables. A little bit smaller guy, Tom, but low-key really underrated as far as how strong this guy is. He's strong. I know part of it is the elusiveness, the slippiness on the field, but this man far and away led college football in broken tackles the last 2 seasons. I actually had the numbers. I meant to write it down, but it was astronomical how much broken tackles he had, and the next closest guy was well behind him. And actually, I'm a little nervous for the NFL because there's some rumors out there that he could slip to number 10 to the Eagles. And in that offense with Jalen Hurts, who, by the way, in an interview said they asked him, what quarterback do you most want to play with? He said Jalen Hurts. They got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. As a Chiefs fan, I'm a little bit nervous if that happens. So, I mean, again, Tom, if I'm the Bears, I draft this guy at number 9. There are rumors of him going to number 8 to Atlanta, which the Falcons apparently are well known for drafting the best player available, regardless of position, regardless of need. But someone's going to get himself a Hall of Fame running back. I love Will Anderson. I love Bijan Robinson. I love Bryce Young. And then C.J. Stroud might be my 4th pick, Tom, if I was drafting players in this draft. Those are kind of the and I'm not 100% sold on C.J. I'm leaning towards great career. But the other 3, barring injuries, I think we got Hall of Famers in those 3. Love Robinson.
Those are all great picks. I'm on board with every single one of them. A couple different names that I'm also looking at. A little bit of a local product out of Illinois, Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback. He's a little bit on the smaller side of things, but you look at the passer rating against for him, and he's incredible. Lovie Smith said that this is the best defensive prospect that he had at Illinois. I mean, there's a lot of important positions in the NFL, but especially at in the passing era of the league, you need to have really, really good cornerbacks, and he's not afraid of anybody. So I really like Devin Witherspoon. I think he is going to be an impact player from day one, and he's going to be an impact player for a long time. I know with defensive backs, it's a little trickier to project, or can they be Hall of Famer? Because, you look at somebody like Charles Tillman, didn't really have a ton of interceptions, but forced a lot of fumbles. You got guys that can be really, really
top
good.
5 all time.
Yeah, like they don't really force the turnovers necessarily, but might be really, really good in coverage, knocking passes away.
Like Sauce Gardner, Darrelle Revis.
Exactly. So I think Devon Witherspoon is going to be fantastic. Going a little bit farther down the board at defensive tackle, I like Elijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh. I know that it's easy to say, smaller defensive tackle coming out of Pittsburgh. Aaron Donald is the natural comparison, and he's not that level of talent necessarily, but certainly, I think is going to be a really, really good option at the NFL level, especially if you're, the Chicago Bears. I wouldn't mind if they traded back a little bit and were able to pick him up and get a couple of additional guys along the way. And then, of course, I mean, Bears need offensive line help. So looking at guys like
Northwestern guy,
Peter Skoronski, I think can be really good. I lost. There he is. Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State, I think can be really, really good. So there's a lot of great talent in this draft. A lot of guys that we get to watch in the future. kind of like skimming down. Yeah, there's there's names that I like further down the board as well. But as far as names that we're going to be hearing day one of the draft, Witherspoon is going to be a really, really good one. A couple different offensive linemen, Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh. I think those are going to be some names as well that are going to be stars in the NFL with good reason.
A few Pittsburgh
So
guys, Tom, real quick before we get to
mhm,
busts.
yeah.
Few players that came out of Pittsburgh, which is traditionally actually kind of a powerhouse for NFL players. Dan Marino,
Hmm.
Tony Dorsett,
Yep.
more recently LaShawn McCoy. A lot of Pitt Panthers. Larry Fitzgerald, wasn't he Pitt as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So those Pittsburgh Panthers, they produced some talent, Tom Casselman.
Absolutely. Well, let's go to busts for the draft now, and we'll kind of refine this as guys that we think are going to be kind of first round picks, but maybe aren't going to pan out. We already talked extensively about the quarterback, so maybe have a pick or two for guys that we think might not necessarily translate at the next level from their collegiate to their pro status.
Yeah, I'm coming straight for Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, boys. Take note, Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. You guys have completely butchered your talent evaluation this time around. Tom Castleman, I got one word, the theme of the show. It is production.
Uh
I am
huh.
all about production, 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 production. One guy that did not have a lot of production in college, that would be Jalen Carter. I'm going straight for the top rated prospect, according to some of these
Wow.
NFL geniuses. Yes, he's a D tackle, Tom Castleman. I get it. I know defensive tackles are not supposed to get that many sacks. This guy had like 6 sacks in his entire college career. Last 2 seasons, 3 sacks this year, 3 the year before. Did not have a lot of tackles. The guy did not deliver great numbers at Georgia. Actually, kind of reminds me of Trayvon Walker, by the way, who also didn't have amazing numbers, but still better than him, I think. He was number one last year, shouldn't have been number one. Okay, rookie year, not terrible, not great. And obviously the Jalen Carter off-field concerns, the high-speed chase, which is, again, very immature. It's
Hmm.
the off-field concerns, the maturity, and the lack of on-field production. I almost think like it's even like the mental side of things, because obviously this whole off-field stuff really got to him. He didn't perform well at the combine. Well, can he handle the pressure when things go wrong? This guy, Jalen Carter, to me, is going to be the biggest bust in the NFL. And the Bears, I mean, again, if he's still there for the Bears, I really hope they don't take him, because this has potential to be such a disastrous draft for Chicago. They could potentially pass on Bryce Young, pass on Bijan Robinson, and end up getting Jalen Carter. Again, I mean, look, I don't like to wish ill upon anybody. I hope I'm wrong. I hope all these guys are great. But to me, Jalen Carter's got bust written all over him. I mean, look, same conference, same players that are going up against. Will Anderson had more than 3 times as much sacks. I know, again, D tackle, but Warren Sapp, Cameron Hayward more recently today in the modern NFL, Aaron Donald, of course. If you're a great player, you'll find ways to get sacks. And by the way, that Georgia defense, fantastic. It's not like they could just double team him. I mean, there's not, I
Hmm.
mean, the whole defense eats, but for me, Jalen Carter is going to be a guy who's not going to be an NFL star. Maybe he's a starter, but I don't think we're looking at a Pro Bowl player. I don't think we're looking at a guy that produces on the field, because I don't think he was anything spectacular in college. That's for sure. He's getting, again, based on potential, not production. And one of these guys, by the way, Tom, I've got Carter, Levis, Richardson, all his busts. One of these 3 guys will prove me wrong and be amazing. 2 of the 3 will prove me right and be horrible. That's my gut feeling on these guys.
Yeah, for me, one guy that I think is going to be, I mean, simply a bust just because of draft position. I mean, you can obviously be a solid player at the NFL level, but this talk of Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, we're talking about like you said, the production level of a player.
He wasn't even a starter, I don't think, right? Are we talking
Didn't
about the same
start at
guy?
Iowa. I mean, I
Yeah,
understand like it's kind of in the same situation as Jalen Carter, where there's so much talent on the defensive line that you're going to have a lot more rotation. But in his collegiate career, 13 and a half sacks
that's
over the
that's
course of two
that's more
seasons, which is
that's more than Jalen Carter.
it is, but it's not as good as you would expect for like a top 10 pick playing at a Big Ten
Exactly.
school.
Jalen Carter.
So I'm going to
Exactly.
say, Van Ness, looking over his scouting report, basically good power rusher. But at the NFL level, a lot of these guys can handle power rush pretty okay. Are you going to be able to develop counter moves off of that to use something other than just raw strength that you were, capable of bullying, the little sisters of the poor, so to speak, on Saturdays? It's a difference facing Saturday tackles as opposed to facing Sunday tackles at the NFL level. And then another guy that I'm going to say he's probably going to go in the first round. Maybe he'll go early second, but I'm certainly not super duper high on him. Is Quinton Johnston out of TCU? I think he can be a fine a player at the NFL level, but basically, I don't know how I feel about his production translating to the NFL level as far as coming out of that college route tree that he was running. I think that there are better options than him if you're looking for a wide receiver. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba is certainly going to be up there. I know Jordan Addison's going to be up there. Quinn Johnson's kind of considered, right along with Zay Flowers is like that, third guy off the board.
Sure.
I don't know if I necessarily buy that, but like you need to be polished up on your route running in the NFL. You can't just rely on superior size, superior speed at this level.
Unless you're
So
Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson.
well, yeah, but they were also
Sure.
really good route runners
I
as
know,
well.
I
That's
know, I
something
know.
where he could use a little bit more polish. I mean, I know he can be explosive, but that's the difference between if you're say a Cooper Cup or a Gabriel Davis at the NFL level is your route running, your attention to detail.
Wow, that's a crazy comparison there. Uh, Cooper Cup, come back here this
Hmm.
year, baby. Let's see Cooper Cup
Yeah,
dominate.
yeah, and talking about stars, I've been hearing comparisons of Jackson Smith and Jigba to Cooper Cup, which is certainly lofty praise, but
Wow.
similar
Eh,
short
If,
area
if, if,
quickness
if
and
he's half as good, I mean, look, the Ohio State receivers have hit in recent years.
mhm.
That's a good one. I think Jackson Smith and Jacob is going to be very good on whatever NFL team he ends up on, for sure.
Yeah, really quickly, let's touch on Aaron Rodgers. Not so happy trails to you heading out to New York. It's going to be an interesting situation where I know that he's kind of prickly around the media, and that is in a relatively friendly confine of Green Bay and
Yeah, good
Milwaukee,
luck.
Wisconsin. Now he's going to New York, where everybody is going to be out to criticize him. I mean, something that I heard yesterday, the lead host for ESPN's morning sports programming is a big Jets fan.
Who's
Mike
that?
Greenberg. Mike Greenberg,
Oh,
formerly of
see that
Mike and
that's
Mike in the
before.
Morning.
Yeah, that's before I wake up because I watch Sports Center
Hmm.
most mornings, but I think I watched the 11 o'clock version. It's like Sage Steele and Matt Barry. So I was like, "Who's the morning guy?" I'm not up early enough to watch that one, Tom, because I watch
Yeah,
Sports
it's
Center every night and every day, and I miss the morning crew personally.
well. So I mean, it's going to be one of those situations where what happens when the Jets lose 3 games in a row because they're playing in a really really
He
tough
gets booed.
division. So I mean, I think in terms of who won the trade, oddly enough, I kind of feel like everybody fairly
Hmm.
evenly comes out where they wanted to be. And maybe that's a product of the fact that this has been considered a done deal since right before free agency opened up, where Rodgers says it is my intent to play for the New York Jets. And it was simply a matter of the compensation. So what's basically happening with the compensation is the Jets are switching with the Packers. They're moving back a couple of picks in the first round. Packers moving up a little bit. And then I think that there's some like a second round pick and some later round conditional stuff going on as well. But it feels like everybody got what they wanted. The Packers get to move on to Jordan Love as their undisputed quarterback this year. They get a little bit of cap space with moving Aaron Rodgers' contract. The Jets have a veteran guy that they feel can help this roster contend this year for a division title. And Aaron Rodgers gets to now go and be the guy in New York as he kind of has been wearing out and being felt worn out on his welcome in Green Bay. So I kind of see this as a win-win-win, which is always nice to see. Com, do you agree, or do you think that somebody got a little bit more of an advantage over somebody else?
Yeah, real quickly, the breakdown of the deal. I have it written down. The Jets get
Mhm.
Rodgers, the 15th overall pick this draft, the 5th round pick, number 170. The Packers get the 13th pick, a 2023 second round pick, that's number 42, a 6th round pick, 207, and a conditional 2024 second round pick that becomes a first round pick if Rodgers plays 65% of the plays. So, first, real quick, I know it's kind of like a no duh obvious thing, but just to state this, there really is no true no way to know because no way to even really like remotely forecast it because with draft picks you never know. Like there's so many draft picks in this deal that who the guys take in those rounds really can really reevaluate this 5 years from now. I know that's a no duck comment, but just want to put it out there.
Mhm.
My gut feeling. By the way, a lot of folks on the internet actually think that the Packers lost, or the Jets rather lost the trade. They say that they gave up too much. I
Mm.
actually am with you on this one. I know we've been, I guess we're kind of hand in hand in some ways, kind of disagreeing in others. In this case, I think I agree with you. Both teams got what they needed. The Jets desperately need a quarterback. It's been an absolute mess. Quarterbacks they've drafted have been terrible. Zach Wilson. They had Sam Darnold, Mark Sanchez. Maybe Geno Smith is actually good. Maybe he wasn't in a good spot with them. But at least for their team, the quarterbacks they've had in recent years have been terrible. I mean, in general, the Jets, I guess Joe Namath way back in the day, but again, he's an overrated player. He got that Super Bowl. I know numbers are different in that era, but I'm trying to think of I guess Vinny Testaverde was decent. Chad Pennington
Mhm.
was decent. But if the Jets ever had like an absolutely amazing quarterback, I'm blanking. I mean, it would be what? Joe Namath. And again, quarterback wasn't as important then. I can sit here and tell you why Namath is the most overrated quarterback in the history of football. I can list the stats and go on about that. But the Jets franchise needed a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, Tom, how much is left in the tank? I don't know. It's hard to say because this guy, granted, 2 years ago, Cooper Cup should have won the MVP. Highway robbery, he didn't. But whether he deserves it or not, Rodgers coming off 2 straight MVPs just 2 and 3 years ago. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's not far removed from MVPs. And it's kind of interesting, like, do we have the Peyton Manning situation or the Tom Brady situation here? And the truth is, it's probably somewhere in the middle. But, Peyton Manning has a historic season, the best season of all time, 55 passing touchdowns. 2 years later, his arm completely falls off. Yeah, he was 2 years removed from an MVP season, arguably the best season in NFL history, and then he was done. Tom Brady, we were waiting. He had a few bad games, maybe a little bit of an off year. Everyone said, is Brady done? He came back and had, another 8 years of Hall of Fame level play. And then, of course, we have Russell Wilson, who obviously dropped off a lot last year. Then Drew Brees is probably the example in between where he dropped off. He was still good. I'm guessing that he's kind of going to be more of that Drew Brees, maybe Ben Roethlisberger type where he's still pretty good, but he's not the player he used to be. It's hard to say because if he's anywhere close to his MVP level, the Jets got themselves a heck of a deal. But last season, it was very uncharacteristic for Rodgers. Rodgers, more than any quarterback in the history of the NFL, Tom, he limits interceptions. Touchdown to interception ratio,
Mhm.
the best ever. This man simply does not throw interceptions. Actually, sometimes that's an issue because maybe he's too conservative sometimes. But last season, it was just he just wanted to throw the ball to the Detroit Lions. He's like, here you go, Detroit. I'll hand you the ball. So just a very, very weird season for Rodgers. Maybe a change of scenery could be good for him. I do think that they're not going to make the playoffs, Tom. I really don't. I think the Jets, Tom, might be the third best team in the NFC, third or fourth. And they would, their AFC is too good. I mean, they're the
Mhm.
third best team in their division, assuming Tua stays healthy. So If Tua goes down again, then the Jets will sneak in as a wild card. If Tua plays all 17 games, if Josh Allen plays all 17 games, the Jets are not making the playoffs. But overall, I think good deal for both sides. Packers get to see what happens with Jordan Love. And he was going to leave, by the way. Love was going to walk. Those were what the rumors were if he didn't get a chance to start this season or next season. I mean, he wasn't going to wait. Rodgers has, 3 years left on his deal? He wasn't going to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
He was going to walk. So do you get maybe 10 years out of Jordan Love? Or do you get like 2-3 years from an Aaron Rodgers past his prime? Maybe an Aaron Rodgers that could retire the next season too? Good deal for both sides is my take.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier in the show that the NBA playoffs heating up. I don't know at what point the NBA playoffs were ever cooled down, Common. To be perfectly honest with you, from jump, we have had riveting content out of a first round, perhaps the most exciting first round that we've had in
Ever.
a while, and it's spurred on by a number of things. I mean, the first series that we have up to talk about, you got the Golden State Warriors, the reigning NBA champions, a 6 seed going up against a bus right away opponent with the Sacramento Kings. That series tied up at 2-2 as we go to Game 5 tonight. We have the suddenly very, very quiet Memphis Grizzlies.
Hate the
Down
Grizzlies.
3-1 to the LA Lakers. They that's a team where I liked the bravado, but
I
you
don't.
gotta back it up. Like it's good to a point. It was good last year. I enjoyed the bravado and the back and forth last year. This year, it took a turn to being annoying, and I don't really like using the term clownish to describe,
clownish,
grown adults, but
100%.
the fact that you have, Dylan Brooks, I poke bears. That's what I do. Well,
Mr. 33%
you've
from
been
the field.
miming the past 2 games, not talking to the media afterward. That was a great joke, by the way, about different forms of comedic entertainment. You have been miming, basically, not making yourself available to the media after saying how you poke bears. You don't respect anybody till they give you 40. Well,
20 and 20 is 40.
Said, 20 and
Shaquille
20 is
40. King James.
And actually, you could even say that LeBron James in Game 3 gave you 40 because he put up 25 points, but also had a bunch of assists, which also go for points. So we've got plenty there. I mean, we've got Suns and Nuggets coming up after the Clippers decided that they didn't even say I'm going to take my ball and go home. They just said you can have the ball. We're going home. Completely unreliable. And then of course we've got a series with Miami and Milwaukee that is looking kind of dangerous. But from last I checked, I'd have to check again. If you wanted to put money on the Bucks to win the series, it's still pretty short odds. It's like plus 120 something last I checked, which is not a lot. So, Kamen, let's start off with the Warriors and Kings. We'll just kind of breeze through a lot of these things on the recap. We've got essentially
who's going to win
now.
Let's go who's going to win.
You got the Kings. They've got 2 at home, 1 on the road, or the Warriors. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going Warriors. I had Warriors in 7 before the series started. I had Warriors in 7 when they were down 1-0. Warriors in 7 when they were down 2-0. I might even change to Warriors in 6. It's going to be really interesting because this Game 5, Sacramento is toast if they lose this game. A lot of it goes down to how healthy is De'Aaron Fox, because if that injury is serious, they're in serious trouble, because De'Aaron Fox has been, quite frankly, incredible in this series. He's kind of like, I think he's propelling himself to a second-tier star. I'm not ready to say he's first-tier, but I think he's becoming a second-tier star in the NBA, right on the edge of a top 10 player. I know we've had this discussion ad nauseum on this show. The 7th best player and the 1st best player in the NBA, very little separates them. The 15th and the 7th or 8th, very little separates them. A lot of great players. NBA is in a great spot right now, but De'Aaron Fox is knocking on that door of top 10 player in the league. And he is in the clutch time because he was NBA's clutch player of the year this last season. So if De'Aaron Fox is less than 80%, Tom, Warriors win this game. They win the series in 6. Goodbye, Sacramento. You got no chance. If De'Aaron Fox is, 90, 95, close to 100%, it's still a total toss-up. I mean, I told you, I was like Warriors, but I wasn't convinced. I wasn't 100% sold. And I don't know what, I'm staying away from this game tonight. I'm not betting on it at all. I told you that I'm on fire with my bets. Outside the show, of course, I'm betting locks on
Mhm.
this show, not so much, but I bet a lot. I bet all 7 days of the week. I'm on fire. I'm staying away from game 5. Warriors are what, like a 1.5 point favorite. I don't know what's going to happen in game
Yeah.
5, but regardless, I'm taking the Warriors because look, it's cliche. I know it's such a cliche, but this is the defending NBA champions. You know, Steph, Clay, Draymond, even Iguodala, not as much of a, player on this team. Steve Kerr, those are kind of the 5 guys there that have been there since the run in 2015. They've won how many rings together, Tom? 4? 4 rings. So the Kings were last in the playoffs, like 17 years ago. I mean,
Something like
it's
that.
at some point, if this gets to a game 7, I'm trusting the Warriors, experience. And quite frankly, Stephen Curry, he's having a great series, 31.5 points per game. Sacramento is a great offensive team, led the league in offense points per game, I believe, this year. Sacramento did. They're a terrible defensive team. That's their issue. Sacramento does not match up well against Golden State because their defense is not very good. The Golden State doesn't match up well against Sacramento because their defense isn't very good. That's where we're seeing a lot of high-scoring games. But as good as De'Aaron Fox is, he's not Stephen Curry.
Mhm.
It's Stephen Curry. He's the best player in this series. Doris Burke had a line that I actually, quite frankly, agreed with Tom Casselman. Watched some of the
Mm.
game on Sunday. Doris Burke said, it's crazy to think about this, but Stephen Curry's actually underrated as a basketball player. It's wild because it's true. Because the man is so good at driving to the basket, so good at setting up his teammates. He gets a ton of hockey assists, by the way. I don't know if I've seen a guy get more hockey assists than Stephen Curry in the history of basketball. I mean, the offense flows through him. A lot of times
Mhm.
he gets the pass to the guy who gets the pass.
Well, I mean, like that's a
Um,
function of the Steve Kerr offense,
well,
to be
sure,
sure.
but I mean, also a function of how good Stephen Curry is. Simply put, give me the Warriors. It could go 6, could go 7, based on how Game 5 goes.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Kings in 7 on this one, and the big stat and that I'm looking at is the Warriors are the number 3 defense when they're at
At
home.
home and
On the
28
road,
on the
they're
road.
28th on the road. That
Yeah.
is astonishing to me. How valuable, I guess, the fans in San Francisco are to this team's defensive
Keep in
effort. I
mind,
mean,
Andrew Wiggins is back, though. He missed a
yeah,
lot
but
of the season. He's back, and he's big
well,
on
yeah,
their
but that still doesn't
defense.
change like the rest of the guys what their split is home versus road. I mean, obviously the De'Aaron Fox injury, if he aggravates it and isn't really able to play a ton of minutes, of course that changes things over to the Warriors side of things. But the fact that he's very very confident about being able to give it a go, being able to play through this injury, even if it's on his shooting hand, if he's at 85% capacity and able to contribute. I mean, you've got Malik Monk who can help take some of that scoring effort. Domantas Sabonis, we still have not seen him play at that all-star level that he's been at all season long. I think the Kings, like I said at the beginning of the series, they're proving that they're not scared of anybody. They're not running away from anybody. I do think that they missed out on an opportunity to close out a game in Golden State. They had that 1 point loss on the road. That was a pretty critical game where, maybe if I'm Mike Brown, I shouldn't take that time out, getting that rebound, being in transition, just let De'Aaron Fox do what he does, which is get to the
True.
rim in transition. I think that was a little bit of an error that perhaps changes the whole trajectory of the series that we're talking about 3-1
It
versus
was Steph
2-2.
Curry's timeout, though.
But I think I'm still going to go with the Kings in this one uh, for now. Of course, like I said, the De'Aaron Fox injury is going to have magnitudes to say about this one. The Grizzlies Lakers series, I said, okay, give me Lakers in 7. I don't know if it's going to get to that point. I'm looking at the injury report. And I don't know if ESPN is just behind or whatever, but they have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Dennis Schroeder all as doubtful for Game 5. I'm fairly certain they're all going to be playing.
Sure.
Wild overtime victory for the LA
Epic
Lakers.
game.
they
Epic
look
game.
winded at the end of it, and then have travel across country to the Memphis Grizzlies. So I'm going to go with Grizzlies in Game 5 because younger team, healthier than the Lakers are, especially if Davis or James are in any way kind of limited by their capacity. But I think Lakers probably still close this one out. No.
Yeah, 100%. I'm torn on Game 5 and Game 6. I will have this game on betting locks of the week, but not on the game spread. I'll have something a little different on betting locks of the week.
Player
But
prop?
well, I have a player prop, not in this game. So I'm mixing it up this week, Tom. Got to mix it up to break
Got
the
to mix it up.
sports curse for betting locks of the week. So look, the Lakers are up 3-1 in this series. LeBron is averaging 24 points per game. Anthony Davis is averaging 19.5 points per game. I mean, that's well below their season averages, well below their career averages. I know LeBron obviously is LeBron. He's impacting the game with his defense in this series, taking charges, getting blocks. He's getting a ton of rebounds, a lot of assists. But still, at least offensive output production, they are not getting the A game from LeBron and certainly not from Davis. Davis needs to step up. I mean, LeBron's
he's banged up. He's got a hip and a foot injury.
He's banged up, but he was banged up all series, and he had a couple really good games, a couple not so good games. Point is, their two star players are not scoring the ball as much as you would expect, and they're still up 3-1. Austin Reeves is playing amazing. Rui Hachimura's playing amazing. Their defense is really good. Lakers redid the team at the trade deadline. All of a sudden, their defense got really, really good. And the problem with the Grizzlies is, Tom, every offensive possession, they're playing 4-on-5 because Dillon Brooks is probably the worst starter in the NBA playoffs right now. The man could talk his mouth. He's a horrendous basketball player. I mean, horrendous. He's shooting 33% from the floor, 22% from three. He shot under 40% in the regular season. I mean, he literally, of any NBA contender, he is the worst player I can think of on the court for years. This man has no business talking his mouth. He only talks when he does good. Then he's a little baby when things don't go his way. Won't talk to the media. Dillon Brooks is just a joke of a person. I cannot stand Dillon Brooks as a basketball player. Cannot stand him as a person. He literally is costing the Grizzlies in this series. By the way, this defense that he's good at, LeBron's shooting like over 60% when guarded by Dillon Brooks. So Memphis has a chance in this series only if they bench Dillon Brooks because he is literally hurting the team. It's hard to play 4-on-5 in basketball. That's essentially what the Grizzlies are doing. I cannot stand the trash talking, Tom. Look, trash talking is awesome if you can back it up. But to start trash talking, you got to do something first. The current Memphis Grizzlies roster, Tom Casselman, has one playoff series win. One playoff series win. No one on that roster has any point to talk at all whatsoever. This series would be the Lakers regardless of both teams at full strength, but obviously Adams and Clark, the big guys for the Grizzlies, are not there. Lakers have that size advantage. Lakers, quite frankly, have the depth advantage, too, in this series. The Lakers bench, the Lakers role players. I mean, Rui Hachimura, this dude is a baller. I love Rui. I mean, the more I watch this guy, the more I fall in love with him. Look, I watched regular season NBA, but I'm super busy at work. I hadn't watched as much as I usually do. I've really made it a point to carve out as much time as I can the last few weeks of the season in the playoffs, and this guy is a bad dude. I mean, literally, like if there's one guy who a month ago, Tom, I would have said to myself, like, who's this guy? He's just okay. Rui Hachimura is a baller. Lakers will win this series. Game 5 is a total toss-up, but I think Lakers definitely win. One thing to think about, Tom, is the Lakers are tired. They're older. Maybe they want to end this series as soon as possible. So I could also see them just saying, let's end this in Game 5. Also, their travel time, if they play the Warriors, they play the Kings, not as much travel. It's not like a cross-country flight. similar time zone. That could also help them in the next series. Keep that in mind.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of first round series that wrapped up the Nuggets and the Suns both advancing 4 games to 1. So who you have in this series? I mean, my pick is going to be the Denver Nuggets. I think that
Sure.
they need to tighten things up a little bit. They looked vulnerable at times against a Timberwolves team that has a couple of really good pieces, but maybe not necessarily enough depth, enough scoring across the board. The Suns have that in spades, so I definitely think that this is going to be a challenging series for the Denver Nuggets. It's going to come down to how are they going to be able to match up with Kevin Durant? How are they going to be able to match up with Devin Booker? I think those are going to be the two biggest things to look at. I think it's also going to be interesting to see how the Suns handle Nikola Jokic. You know, obviously DeAndre Ayton is going to be the primary guy for that, but when he's not on the floor, who's going to be handling that responsibility in a really kind of different sort of offense, given that they're able to run everything through essentially a point center, if you will, with Jokic, especially on those high screen rolls and different offensive concepts on that front. So I'm going to go Nuggets. I'm going to say 7 games because that is the default for a series that is really, really close in my book. We got two teams that score really well. It's just going to be a matter of who's able to come up with enough of the defensive stops. Who has the ball last? Is it going to be Kevin Durant with the ball in his hands last, or is it going to be Nikola Jokic? Is it going to be Devin Booker? Is it going to be Jamal Murray? These are going to be the plays and the players that we're going to have to keep an eye out on. So I'm going Nuggets this one. I have a feeling you're going to be going opposite of me, which is totally fair. This is a coin flip series in my book.
100% a coin flip. I'm going to surprise you, Tom. I'm going to flip flop my pick. I am
Whoa.
usually the guy who sticks firm to his pick. I'm a guy who says I picked this earlier in the postseason.
Uh huh.
I'm going to stick with it. I had the Suns making the finals. I had the Suns over the Nuggets. Again, 100% total toss. I'm talking like 51-49. I agree 7 games. Injuries will matter. But I'm going to go ahead and flip my pick. I was not
Wow.
impressed with Phoenix in their first round series against the Clippers. LA Clippers without their 2 best players for most of the series. I mean, to
Hmm.
be honest with you, the LA Clippers roster was really, really bad. I know they
Yeah.
fought hard. I like Lou as a coach, other than the fact that his guys sit. How much is that him? How much is it the front office? How much is it the players themselves? I don't know. But as far as an on-court tactician, great coach. This was a 5 game series, but most of the games were close. There was like one semi blowout, but it wasn't even like it was a great second half for Phoenix.
Hmm.
Phoenix should not have been in this many competitive games. I think I was actually a little bit underwhelmed with Chris Paul. Excuse me. His
Hmm.
age is showing. I think
Yeah.
the Suns have no depth whatsoever. That's why
Needed.
they're so prone to they go on a 27 run, then they face a 27 run. That's very concerning. I know that happens a lot in the NBA,
Mhm.
but it's happened to them literally like every game this series.
Yeah, you needed
So
a lot of Herculean efforts out of Kevin Durant and
well,
Devin Booker to be putting up big point totals to win.
specifically Devin Booker. Devin
Mhm.
Booker is a very good player, but he's a little bit inconsistent shooting the ball. He's one of those guys who could go, 15 for 20, then go 3 for 20 also. He had a lot of those 15 for 20 days in this last series. 37% or 37 points per game in this series, well over 50% from the floor. He was incredible. Incredible, right? I don't think he's going to be that good this next series because he had to be that good to knock out the Clippers. And
Mhm.
I'm actually a little bit curious to see what happens with Durant because at the moment he's kind of deferring to Devin Booker, and it's working because Devin Booker's played so good this series, so good down the stretch in the regular season. But what happens? I mean, is Kevin Durant's going to defer to Devin Booker when Devin Booker is cold? The Suns might be in trouble. I think the Nuggets have better depth. The Nuggets have a clear identity. Because, I mean, are the Suns Booker's team or are they Durant's team? Because the Nuggets are Jokic's team. They play through Jokic. He's the point center. and they have a lot of really good players around them. Michael Porter Jr. has played great in the playoffs. Jamal Murray's really good. They even
Mhm.
have like guys like Caldwell Pope, a guy who has won a championship with the Lakers. Aaron Gordon, a good athlete who, again, he's not stopping Kevin Durant, but he could somewhat contain him. I'm going to say Nuggets in 7. Look, I'm either right with my pre-playoff prediction or I'm right with this one. We'll see. Could go either way. Definitely could go either way.
Absolutely. So I think the most gripping series in the Eastern Conference currently is Bucks and Heat. The 8 seeded Miami Heat have a 3-1 advantage. Of course, that is in no small part to the fact that Giannis
Jimmy
played
gets
a
buckets.
little bit in game 1, was injured, went out, missed games 2 and 3. Game 2, the Bucks came back with a vengeance, shooting as well in game 2 as they had shot poorly in game 1. But then Jimmy Butler decided, you know what? I'm going to go out and put the highest playoff, like the best playoff performance in Miami Heat history based on game score. Better than the Dwayne Wade championship year, better than the big 3 championship years where you had Bosh, Wade, and James. No individual player had a better game score than Jimmy Butler did in game 4 against the Milwaukee Bucks on the road, which is wild to think about. So if you look at the odds, I'll take a
It
minute to
was
look up
it
the
was
price
in
on this
Miami, I
one.
think, Tom. The game was in Miami, but still impressive.
Oh, that's right. They flipped it around. So it
Yeah.
was in Miami. But still, I mean, nonetheless impressive
Oh
against a
yeah.
really, really strong Milwaukee Bucks team that at times looks a little out of sorts. In particular, Giannis looking a little out of sorts because he's probably still not
I
100%
Yeah,
with the back.
Giannis played really good this last game. He played really good. He actually
For a
looked
big
pretty
stretch,
good.
but down that fourth quarter stretch,
Sure.
he was kind of losing control of
Maybe he
himself
was
a little
tired a little
bit.
bit. Maybe.
Possibly. That's
Look,
true. Prior to this year, I think the last time he'd played like significant minutes was like a few weeks ago
and that's
in
part of it is
April.
injuries. Giannis isn't playing
Mhm,
enough. They rest him too much in the regular season. I'm telling you, this whole injury thing, Tom, it's real. These
mhm.
guys got to be playing 38 minutes a game, 39 minutes a game, so their body is used to it during those games.
Do
It
you want
was
really quickly the odds to win the series?
sure,
Miami's only minus 135. Milwaukee's
yeah.
plus 115.
Hmm.
So that's interesting
I
that
know
that folks still
look,
believe in the Bucks.
it's a total toss up. It's 3-1. Milwaukee's the better team, but
Mhm.
this isn't an 82 game season. It's a 7 game series. And Jimmy Butler had probably, it was the 4th most points all time in a playoff game. But given the consistency, the accuracy of which he shot the ball, given the team that he did it against, this was probably the 2nd best playoff performance of all time, behind Michael Jordan's 63
Mm.
against Larry Bird and the Celtics. Just incredible. 56 points. And what's nuts is the guy was exhausted. He's coming off an injury. His 2nd leading scorer on the team, probably Tyler Hero, is out. Victor Oladipo is out. Jimmy Butler, a little bit banged up, a little bit exhausted, knew that he had to put the team on his back, and he did it. Just literally iconic. I will stand by that statement. 2nd best playoff performance in the history of the NBA. Jimmy Butler, and he had to do it. If he didn't score 56, they were not winning that game. As far as who wins this series, it's a total toss-up. I'm still gonna say the Bucks are gonna win it, just because they're the better team. They got to get 1 road win. Butler's been phenomenal this entire series, by the way. He's playing, again, amazing player, like Devin Booker, amazing player. Is he going to do this the next 3 games? I don't know.
Mm.
He's not going to get 56 again, right, Tom? The Bucks led almost the
I mean, he
entire
might.
way. I know it
If
ended up
anybody's
being
showing up in
right.
playoff time,
It's
it's Jimmy
yeah,
Butler.
he tried to deny it. His playoff Jimmy Butler thing is like, no, yeah, it is, Jimmy. 100% is. But look, realistically, Tom, he's not going to get 56
Mhm.
again. I don't know what the final score ended up being, but it was like a 1 possession game with 2 minutes left. I know Miami put up a lot of points very late in the last minute
Mhm.
where the score was maybe not indicative of the game. Plus 7.5 hit though. Check mark. Kamen and chip betting. I also got the Lakers minus 4.5 on that late Austin
Mhm.
Reeves free throws. But you said it, Tom. Giannis barely played game one. He missed game two. He missed game three. And then game four, his first game back. Giannis is going to make a huge difference. This is going to go down to game six in Miami. Can the Bucks get game six in Miami? I think they can. I think Milwaukee, best record in the league this year. It's much easier for Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Grayson Allen, Brooke Lopez, Bobby Portis, Jay Crowder. All these really good role players when they get the open looks through Giannis. I know game two they shot great without him, but that's almost sort of like an anomaly type game. Like when you're asked to be the guy, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, they're not the guy. They're the second and third guy. That's why Milwaukee works so well, because their team is built around Giannis being there on both ends of the floor, by the way. So I think that the Bucks are just simply better. I'm going to say the Bucks win 3 in a row, but again, might as well flip a coin. I won't be betting on their series just because Jimmy Butler could go off for 50 plus, because we just saw him do it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. For me, Drew Holiday is probably my favorite player in the NBA. He's my guy.
He was terrible this last game.
He was, but
he was terrible.
But he's one of the few players where he can do pretty much literally anything you need him to do in a given game, which is why he is such a unique star in terms of, you need me to take the back seat, just facilitate and pass the ball. I can do that. I can defend their best guy. I can go and rebound. I can score. I can do everything.
That's literally what Jimmy Butler does, though, but he does it at a better level. Because Jimmy
Butler's the number one guy is what I'm saying. Right, Drew Holiday defers and can say literally, okay, whatever you need from me. If Giannis is out, you need me to put up buckets, I'll get buckets. If you want me to just facilitate the offense, I can do that too.
That's what I'm saying. Jimmy Butler, that's why he can get 15 in a game, because he doesn't care about scoring. Jimmy Butler cares about one thing. That is winning. If he can score, if he needs to score 50, he'll do it. If he can score 12 points and you tell him your teammates will be good, you score 12 points, you get the win, Jimmy will be like, I don't care. 12 points is fine. Let these guys cook.
Yeah, as long as my team has at least one more point than the other guys, I'm good with that. Celtics and Hawks had a bit of a meltdown in game 5, where Celtics up 13 points with about 6 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, and then just a lack of aggression, multiple turnovers in succession give the Hawks rather an opportunity to come back, allow Trae Young to play that villain role that he loves so well. For the Celtics, are they actually in trouble in this series, or do you think that they're going to be able to put the Hawks out of the playoffs either in game 6 or game 7?
I don't think they're in trouble in this series, but I think they might be in trouble in the playoffs. What I'm seeing is not very encouraging. Again, they're very guard orientated, and it's a make or miss league. I don't think they have the ability to consistently get a tough bucket if they need it. I am concerned for Boston. If Embiid is healthy, the Sixers will win that second round series. Maybe they squeeze by the Sixers if Embiid is not healthy, but this does not look like a team that's going to make the NBA championship. I do think they're going to win the series because simply they're better than Atlanta. Trae Young is very up and down. He had his great game. I don't know if he's going to be able to put it up again. And also, Murray didn't even play in that game. Boston was at home. They should have closed. They didn't. I think they're going to win this series, but this last game is concerning when it comes to their playoff future as a whole, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Long-term prospects not looking great for the Boston Celtics. They definitely need to button that up. I don't know if that's necessarily that they started to go on cruise control against the 7th seed in game 5 and kind of let them back in the game with some concentration lapses. I think game 6 is going to determine how I feel about them as far as a championship prospect goes. If they come out, absolutely firing, don't let up on the Hawks at all for 48 minutes, then they'll say, okay, they had, a pretty bad lapse, but the talent is still there to be able to win a title. If this series, if it's a loosey-goosey game 6 that they manage to eke out a win, or even if it goes to 7, definitely cause for concern. But I'm going to go with Celtics winning this as well. And then lastly, Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. I know we both had Cavaliers at the start of this thing, but I think what Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks are proving is that there is a difference between a 7-game series and an 82-game season. And we're
Mhm.
seeing Thibodeau and the Knicks absolutely out coach, out hustle, outplay a young and up and coming Cavaliers team that has a lot of talent, but maybe doesn't have that playoff maturity to know what it takes to win a 7-game series. Any chance in your mind that the Cleveland Cavaliers win 3 in a row and actually advance to the next round? Or are we possibly looking at a Chicago reunion of the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler and the Heat against Tom
Yes.
Thibodeau and the Knicks in a series
Well,
that I think
they were
everybody's
together
going to
with
be
the
taking unders
Timberwolves
across the
too.
board?
They were with the Timberwolves together also, but
Yeah,
Chicago
they
for us,
were,
of
but I mean, yeah,
course.
yeah, matching up in
Yeah,
the playoffs
yeah.
for sure.
Look, there's always a chance, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's how sports are. There's always a chance. If Donovan Mitchell has a crazy 3-game stretch, the Cavs have a chance. I'm gonna pick the Knicks because unlike the Bucks and Heat series, the Bucks are clearly the more talented team. Again, the more talented team doesn't always win, but
Mhm.
Milwaukee is clearly more talented up and down the roster. I think Cleveland's a little bit more talented, but they're not like a significantly better team than the Knicks. It's a 4-5 series. To win 3 games in a row against a team that is pretty evenly matched against you,
Mhm.
I'm going to say that the Knicks get this done, which has been a really sort of anomaly of a series. A lot of low scoring games. We have all this like up tempo NBA offenses. You know, you have the Warriors and Kings where it's like 225 to 226, and then you have this series where it's like 92 to 80 something. I just crazy. But I'm gonna pick the Knicks to get that 3-1 series win, probably because of Tom Thibodeau doing great as the coach.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I'm flipping on this one because the Knicks have simply shown that they are the more proven, better playoff team. So that wraps up our content for the rundown. We're into our staples now. We've got betting locks of the week where we continue our cold stretch. I think we've been, what, 1-5 the past 2, 3 weeks, something like that, just alternating which one of us is eking out a cover. But this
Oh,
week,
tough, tough.
certainly have it's NFL draft week, so I'm going to have quite the
Of
card for
course you
you
will.
to keep down.
Yeah, Tom, I've told you this off air, maybe a little bit on air. I am absolutely on fire betting sports this month, this last week. I'm probably hitting about 60 to 70% of my picks, but I miss everyone on this show. It's called the Salute Your Sports Curse. I've won 6 bets in a row the last few days. That means I'm due for an 0-3, so you should fade all my picks because I only pick betting locks well if it's not on the air. It's the air curse, the announcer's curse, the
Hmm.
Salute Your Sports curse. So I was 0-3 last week. I actually had a great Wednesday betting last week, too. I lost these 3 picks. I won my other 5 last Wednesday. So it's all the ones that I didn't pick, of course. But I had the Man City Byron over 3 goals, 1-1 tie. Lakers -1 against the Grizzlies. Grizzlies winning 103-92. I have bet the Lakers spread every game of this series. I've hit it 3 out of 4 so far. The one I didn't hit was the one I picked on the show, of course. Go figure. I did have the Heat +8 against the Bucks. Again, the Heat are up 3-1 in this series. I
Hmm.
just won big money on them +7.5 last night. The only game they lose, the only game they don't cover, the game I picked them to cover.
Yep.
That's how it goes, Tom. It's the Salute Your Sports curse. You were 1-2. You had Bam Adebayo over 9.5 rebounds.
Not even
5
close.
boards for him. You're at the Celtics -5 against the Hawks in game 3. Hawks winning 130-122. You actually should have been 0-3 too, but you got those late free throws. Sixers -4.5 over the Nets in game 3. Sixers winning 102-97. What do you got this week, Tom?
Well, I'm going to take that backdoor cover because I am going for a vintage performance of plus money Casselman.
Let's
Not one,
go.
not two, but three of my locks this week are going to be for plus money. So hop on them if you're in the mood for that sort of thing.
Okay.
I'm going all NFL draft
Of
here.
course you are.
I am going first off, Will Anderson. There's been a shift. Will Anderson is no longer the top defensive player on the board. Now it's Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech is the betting favorite. So go ahead and give me Will Anderson's draft position under 3.5 at plus 155. I think he's still going to end up in Houston. I think that he's going to be a great pick for D'Amico Ryans. Or
So
actually, oh,
under
go ahead.
3.5, that means he gets picked 3, 2, or 1. Is that the way I
Correct.
understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he will be picked within the top 3 picks of the draft. I mean, I could also go for 120, having him be the first defensive player taken. That feels safer. Will Anderson, first defensive player at plus 120, still plus money, but a little bit more security in case we end up seeing QB all at the top of the draft. The Dallas Cowboys letting Dalton Schultz walk in free agency. They could use a new tight end. So, Cowboys, with their first pick of the draft to pick a tight end, you can get that at plus 200. So I'm going to go with that. Cowboys draft a tight end
Plus
with their first overall
200.
pick.
Wow.
And then I am on the fence on how much I want to trust this Will Levis news, because you can get CJ Stroud as the second quarterback selected at plus 225.
Do it.
But I think I'm going to go with Big Ten players drafted in the first round under 8.5 at plus 215. So fewer than 9 Big Ten players will be selected in the first round this year. Remember, Miami forfeited their number 1 overall pick because of tampering with Tom Brady this past offseason. And then, there's some decent Big Ten players, but there's a lot of SEC, some ACC. There's plenty of other guys in there. I was kind of going around a couple of top 100 draft boards, and 215 for under 8.5. It's juiced to the other way if you want to go over. So I'm probably going to get burned on at least a couple of these. But Will Anderson, first defensive player taken at plus 120. Cowboys take a tight end with their first pick at plus 200. Big Ten, fewer than 8.5 guys selected at plus 215.
All right. I like it, Tom. I'm going with an all NBA card tonight. Lakers, Grizzlies. I hate doing this, Tom. I hate picking unders. I almost never do it unless I feel really good about it. This under I feel great about. Lakers, Grizzlies under 222.5 at minus 110 on DraftKings. They've been under that total 2 of the last 3 games. Mm-hmm. And really it would have been all 3 had the previous game not went to overtime. It was under the total in regulation. You mentioned it during the show. I watched it on TV last night. The announcers noticed it too. The Lakers and Grizzlies, you talk about the Lakers being old. The young Grizzlies team also look gassed. They look gassed. It's a physical series. These teams look tired. Had to play overtime. 2 defenses playing really, really well in this series. The playing right doesn't help either. So, I mean, again, LeBron Davis not scoring as much. The Grizzlies don't have much depth. I mean, Brooks isn't doing anything. Lakers actually slowed the game down the last game. They actually waited till late in the shot clock to shoot the basketball. They may do this again just so they can rest kind of in a way. So I think over 222.5 seems like a pretty smart play tonight in the Lakers-Grizzlies game. I've got
under?
Under. I do have under. Would I say over?
Yeah. But just to clarify,
I know I said under at first. I'm so used to picking over that I said it. Under
against your nature.
I know. Under 222.5. I've got the Cavs minus 5.5 over the Knicks tonight. Actually, I said it on my podcast last night, my work podcast. Win or go home game last night. I told our customers, you should bet on all the underdogs to cover the betting spread, which they did. I actually only took one of them myself. Took the Clippers. I meant to take the Hawks, but I backed out. And then I was simply on the air during the Nuggets-Wolves game, so I didn't even have a chance to do that one. But I think it's one of those things where season's on the line. You get that little bit of extra juice, that little bit of extra focus. You give it all that you can. Yes, I know we just picked the Knicks to win the series, which they probably will, up 3-1. But for this game, Cavs are down 3-1. Minus 5.5. It's going to be a great Cleveland performance. So, by the way, the one game they did win in this series, they won by a lot. They won by 17. It was a home game as well. So, Cavs win by 6 or more against the Knicks. Look for a big game from Donovan Mitchell. He's going to be great in this game. He had a great season this year. He's not going down without a fight in this game. And lastly, I do have a player prop. Stephen Curry over 32.5 points at minus 105. He's averaging 31.5 in this series. I need one more point more than his average, but I think Steph understands this game 5. He knows they can put away the Kings. I'm leaning on the Warriors winning this game, but I didn't feel good enough to put it in betting locks of the week. But I think there's no one that can guard him on that team. The Kings don't have anyone that can guard Steph Curry. He knows it. They know it. Steve Kerr knows it. I think it's going to be a vintage Curry game in Game 6. He's shooting really well this series. Actually, could be averaging even more points, Tom, if he was taking more shots. I think a lot of Stephen Curry shots. What's that saying? The role players play better at home. Maybe the role players don't play as good for the Warriors. He sees this as this is the game I put my team on my shoulders. Look for Steph with 33 or more tonight with almost plus money, minus 105, Tom.
Nah, not a lot of juice on that one. So yeah, that wraps up locks of the week. We'll see how those all pan out. Trivia time. I've got baseball and I have football for you. Where do you want to go on this one?
Well, I got basketball, so let's go all three sports real quick.
Let's go all three. All right. So with Aaron Rodgers being traded from the Packers to the Jets, who is now the longest tenured quarterback with their current team?
Ooh, that's a good one. All right, let me think. Veteran, old quarterbacks. There's not that many.
Nope.
There's not many at all. Is it Patrick Mahomes?
It's not Patrick Mahomes, but you're close. You're relatively in the ballpark.
Relatively in the ballpark, okay.
It's not much longer than Mahomes.
Longer, okay. Gosh, it would have been Russell Wilson had he last year, right? That's what's crazy. So it's not him, obviously. He went to the Broncos. Got to be a decent player on a decent team if they're still together. Right?
Yep.
Is it Kirk Cousins?
Nope.
Okay, he's close though, right?
I would say the next
Prescott.
Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh my God.
7 seasons that they have been in partnership with each other. Nicely done.
I think it's 6 for Mahomes, right? I mean, like 5 years as the starter, but technically 6 years there. His rookie year, he wasn't the starter.
That was the 20.
Yeah, it's
17 draft.
Yeah, 6 years for Mahomes.
Yeah.
I was only off by 1. Yeah. And Cousins has been to Minnesota at least 5, if not 6 years as well.
I think it's been 5 seasons.
Okay. All right.
And then for my baseball, the Pittsburgh Pirates, Bob Nutting, the owner for the Pittsburgh Pirates, actually cutting a check, giving Brian Reynolds an 8-year deal worth just north of $106 million. So that now leaves us with all of 3 franchises in Major League Baseball that have yet to give a $100 million contract. You know me, I'm contract Casselman. Which 3 teams have not given a $100 million contract?
The Rays?
No.
They have given one?
Yeah, I'll look up which one it is.
Wow. Really?
I think maybe they gave that contract to, I want to say, Wander Franco.
Wander Franco, yeah. Prospect.
Actually, Evan Longoria agreed to a 10-year deal worth $100 million back a long time ago.
Okay, the third baseman, I remember him.
Yep.
All right. The Oakland A's.
Oakland A's are one of the teams, yes.
They're terrible now.
Which is a shame given their history. They have a lot of great
Kansas City Royals.
Kansas City Royals, yes.
Yeah, I covered Missouri sports long enough. Yep. I don't remember them ever having a big deal. Kansas City Royals. Colorado Rockies.
Nope.
Okay. Man, I was doing good. That was good. Good job, Kamen. Good job.
This last one is going to throw you for a loop.
Okay. So is it the Cleveland Indians / Guardians?
Nope.
No. So it's a good team then, right?
I wish.
The White Sox.
The Chicago White Sox in a little old market called Chicago.
Wow.
Yet to hand out a $100 million contract. I cannot stand Jerry Reinsdorf.
What did Paul Konerko get?
That was like a $60 million deal. Their biggest deal is actually Andrew Benintendi, who they signed last season, but it
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
for. It was for like
former
75
Arkansas
million or
Razorback.
something like that. It was
I guess Connecticut didn't have enough years, and he did take a pay cut too
well, and yeah, and
in
like
Chicago.
that was a different
A different era.
era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Wow, the White Sox are doing really bad, Tom. I hate to
I'm
say it.
I'm not that interested in talking
Okay,
about them. The
that's
White
fair.
Sox are interesting, dangerous territory where it's one like if your fan base is angry, they're at least still feeling something. One spot that a fan that you don't want your fan base to be is
Apathy.
apathetic, and that's
Yep.
where I feel a
Uh-oh.
lot of us are sitting.
Uh-oh.
Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
this is
going to
not
a
good.
game this year. I don't,
Uh,
why? Why should I go to a game this year for the Chicago White
get
Sox? I
the
can hop
cheap
on the
cheap
Metro line just down the
quesadillas
block. I can go out to Schaumburg and watch minor league baseball and have a much
for
more enjoyable
$4.
time. Yeah, it's going to be
All
great.
right. All right, so I got a NBA playoff in light of Jimmy Butler's great game.
Ooh.
56 points, Tom.
Hmm.
Bam Adebayo had 15 points. There was
Okay.
a 41-point difference in the gap of the leading scorer and the second
Oh.
leading scorer in the game. That is the second biggest gap in NBA history. The biggest was 44. There's be 3 points bigger gap.
Hmm.
Can you name the two players that had the largest gap in a playoff game? History of the league. This was the second biggest gap, first to
Hmm.
second leading scorer.
So the obvious one is going to be Michael Jordan with his 63 points.
Not that one.
Not that
I
game.
should have looked it up to see who had the second most. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna do it on my
Yeah, would
phone.
that be like
Easier.
BJ Armstrong or because that was before Scotty was around. The
Let's see.
next biggest
19.
delta.
It is a guy that did used to carry his team quite a bit. So like if you like the
Mhm.
player would not surprise you one bit. I will tell you that. You will not be surprised by it.
Yeah, I'm
Is
just
it a
trying to think like who
it's a
had
player you
amazing
grew up
playoffs.
watching,
Maybe Tracy McGrady
not T
for the
Mac.
Rockets.
Ooh, here's a
No.
blast from the past.
Hmm.
Orlando Woldridge had 24 points in that game. So it was a 39-point difference. This one was 41. So this is probably the third biggest one that Jordan
Yeah.
won.
Wow.
Unless there was a 40 also. I don't know.
Oh, big difference. Maybe Shaq and Kobe.
Not Shaq and Kobe, but you are very much in the correct era. Very
Okay.
much. You're getting very warm.
Very, very warm. Okay. So maybe Tim Duncan as the high point. No, not
Not
with
Tim
Manu
Duncan.
Bertone.
No.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Not Dirk.
Who else
Probably
is?
like you're in the same era. This guy like
Yeah.
probably retired a little bit earlier than the guys you're listing, but he did play in their era. He's a little bit older than those guys that you're listing.
In that
Um,
era.
so maybe like try to
Hmm.
backtrack just a couple years. You did grow up watching this guy, Tom. You would
Okay.
and he played in some big games. Specifically, did play against Shaq and Kobe in a big environment as well.
Okay. I'm wondering if that's like a hint to
It is a hint, yeah. It might have given it away,
like
actually.
David Robinson
No,
later.
a little bit later. Again, David
Okay.
Robinson would have played in the same era as this guy, but um, a little bit later, his prime. There's a clue I could get. It would totally give it away, though.
Hmm.
I'm trying to like.
Okay.
It's a big name player, like
Big
you.
name player.
It's
Allen Iverson
yes, Allen Iverson.
and Eric Snow.
Yes, good job, Tom
Really?
Casselman. 2001 against the Raptors. Allen Iverson
Wow.
dropped a 54 piece, and
Uh-huh.
Eric Snow was the second leading scorer with 44.
Yeah, I know
Was
that
it
was
some?
the no help for AI.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
that's
yeah,
a
good
great
stuff.
piece of trivia. I had
Yeah.
no idea where you were going throughout the entire one. That's a really good one.
I told you though that my clue was going to be he played against him in the finals, but I was going to give it away too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have
But
gotten that one pretty easily. Hang on, I'm
yeah.
gonna Nice day out closing the window, but the
There you
authorities are
go.
after me. Uh,
Uh-oh,
so,
Tom.
statements of the week. The reason the authorities are after me. My statement is to stop giving billionaires money. Stop it. Whether you're paying
Okay.
$8 for a check mark or whether, as a municipality, you are giving money to a franchise owner to build a new stadium. These guys are worth billions of dollars. Stop giving them publicly subsidized taxpayer money to build stadiums. The Metro Nashville City Council approved by a vote of 26 to 12 to give the Tennessee Titans $760 million in city
Mhm.
bonds to build a new stadium. This is in addition to $500 million that the state of Tennessee is providing. So $1.2 billion in
I want
public
some.
bonds for the Tennessee Titans, who, hang on, let me go ahead and look up Tennessee Titans and what their net worth is. But I know for a fact that the cash flow on the NFL is massive. The ownership profits that these guys are able to make are massive. If they're in need of cash, they have the assets to which they can leverage alone, that they can actually go out and get this themselves. The public benefit, I mean, there are multiple reports that I'm blanking on the word, but basically disprove the notion that having a franchise in a city is a public good, that it does generate jobs. It does,
It
but
generates stress
in such
and
a minor
happiness, though.
context. I mean, what are the jobs it provides? Seasonal workers. I mean, these
Mhm.
aren't full time positions for folks that are operating concession stands, that are operating merchandise booths within these stadiums. These aren't open year round. Sure, there's concerts, but again, that's part time. That's seasonal work. That's not actually providing a great economic boon for the city of Nashville that they wouldn't otherwise get for being, from all accounts, a great city for music. It's a great spot to visit, because it's not quite southern, but you have plenty of tourism there because it's warmer than some of these northern Midwest cities. The Tennessee Titans aren't what's going to be bringing a ton of money. This also, we can tie in the Oakland Athletics and the absolute atrocity that we are seeing, where they have possums living in their stadium.
No
They're
one goes
drawing
there.
fewer than 5,000 fans. And no wonder, because the team stinks. The prices are raised, all because the ownership wants to get a sweet deal from more public money to move the team out to Las Vegas within the somewhat near future. So, stop giving these people money. They don't need this money. They're perfectly
Sure.
capable of going out and getting it themselves. I can probably think of any number of things that the city of Nashville, that the state of Tennessee could use their $760 million and $500 million bonds, respectively. That's education. That's public health. There's other public works that they can do. You can provide so many things. If you want to have the people that are yelling about don't defund the police, guess what? That money can go to help fund the police. If you want to be on that side of the political spectrum and reducing an argument down to that context, the last thing that public money should be going for is private owners who own sports franchises. They have the money, they have the assets, they're good for it. Stop letting them bully and leverage public money into bad deals for regular working folks.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I gotta agree with that. I'm not gonna get political. Gotta agree with that.
Mhm.
I've got two statements written down. I'm gonna save one of them because this one could definitely. This is an original statement, and then I thought of another one, and this one could definitely be one that I could probably give next week or the week after, given how the playoffs are looking right now. So my statement of the week, Tom, I'm gonna end with, I guess, like a sobering note for you.
Mm.
Just a gut feeling. It's the common gut, and it's because I've seen it so many times before. The Chicago Bears will mess up this draft. They already messed it up by trading away the number one pick, future Hall of Famer Bryce Young. They're going to have the ninth pick. I think they're going to pick Jalen Carter, is my gut feeling. I know that's all sorts of, not 10th, no, ninth pick, I think the Bears have. Yeah,
Mhm.
ninth pick. They're going to pass on Bijan Robinson. He's going to be great. The Bears could have used them. Bijan Robinson, Justin Fields. Talk about athleticism. My goodness. That'd be nice. They'll find a way to mess it up. Whoever they draft, my gut feeling says whether it's an offensive lineman The guy out of Northwestern, maybe I'm seeing, whether it's Jalen Carter, no matter who it is, my gut says the Bears will mess this up. Unlike most Bear fans who are super pumped about DJ Moore, who, by the way, is a good player, but people are acting like he's the next coming of Randy Moss in this city. They're acting like Justin Fields is the next Michael Jordan. They had 3 wins last year. Everyone's saying the Bears are going to be way better this year. Again, they had 3 wins this last year. DJ Moore had under 1,000 yards this last season. I know over 1,000 3 years before that. But I think the Bears fans' expectations are too high for this draft, too high for this team. The Bears will mess up this draft. And I mean, look, I hope I'm wrong, Tom. I hope I'm wrong. But my gut feeling says Chicago's going to mess this up, and we'll have a pretty high pick again next year.
I'm ready to be hurt again. I could not disagree with you more. I think that the Bears are in a position to perhaps, depending on how the draft breaks and any other deals that might be signing, they could very well be in the mix to win the division next year. I know that the North is down with the Packers and no more Aaron Rodgers, but
and all those Lion guys who are gambling are out now for
the Lions. That's talk about.
I'm surprised you didn't have that in your statement.
I mean, that's just don't be an idiot. Like, there's no. I understand that these apps hit you with limited time offers, and hey, we're doing an odds boost or whatever. But wait till you get home. Yeah, the NFL makes it explicitly clear you can wager on anything so long as it's not NFL related, and so long as it's not on NFL team property. You can go home, Jameson Williams, and bet on Alabama if you really, really want to. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Well,
but
we'll see, Tom.
Bears are going to do great. Bears are going to win the draft. They're going to win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
NFL champs.
Go bold, Tom. Beat me. Swapperoo, Kamen and Tom. It's like a Ted Lasso swapperoo, baby. All right, that's going to do it for us. Next week, we will recap the NFL draft. Maybe take a look at some more of these NBA playoffs situations.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks on a great show, Tom. Thank you to everyone who watches and listens. We'll see you next week.